You're good.
I'd like to call this meeting to order on Monday, June 19th, 2023, at 6 p.m. here in the North Huron Town Hall. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the land which we gather as the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Ottawa, and Mississauga peoples. I'd also like to bring regrets from Councillor McBurney. Confirmation of the agenda that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby accepts the agenda for June 19th, 2023 council meeting as presented. I have mover, Deputy Reeve, seconder, Councillor Whitfield, all in favor. Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interests, anyone? Seeing none. Public comment, opportunity for members of the public to speak to any item or business on the agenda, 2 minutes per person. Seeing none. Consent agenda, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby adopts consent items 5.1.1, and further that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives consent items 5.1.2 to 5.3.2 for information. I have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Van Eersen, Councillor Whitfield. Would anybody like to pull in? Go ahead, Councillor Wright.
I don't need to pull anything. Thank you, Reeve. But just one question. I did notice a bill on there from R.J. Burnside. It was referencing the trailer park development, I assume, in town. I was just curious what work is going on there. I thought it was done and dusted from the town's perspective, but I guess not.
Good. Director Fortney.
Offer to Councillor Wright. I believe that was part of the record of site condition, finishing up that part of that project.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. There's nothing else. All in favor? Carried. Reports? Oh, thank you. 6.1, Mr. Seaback is here to present the audited financial statements. So we welcome Mr. Seaback up on the podium here.
Hello, everybody. I don't know if I was going to... told me how to work this, but maybe we won't use that. Does everybody have it there?
Council does have it.
Oh, is it this one?
Yep, so all those
Oh,
at the
yeah.
bottom there are yours if you just,
Okay.
yep.
So our presenting the audited financial statements. The audited financial statements, they're based, we have to produce them using kind of preset accounting policies, like we have to capitalize assets. When in your budget, you actually expense assets. Our statements don't show reserve transfers as income or expenses. They're an allocation of surplus, so they're there, but we don't show, they don't hit the income statement. So when you look at these statements, and when you look at the income statement, it shows a surplus of $2.9 million, which, you know, when your budget's actually changed to this format, the budget is, was going to show a surplus of 2.8 million. So what I'm trying to say is, when we go through this and you see your surplus 2.9 million, don't get too excited, because that doesn't include reserve transfers of of 2.6 million. So if you take the 2.9 minus 2.6, your surplus is, more of a couple $100,000. So that's the first thing I would say, but you did have on the statements do show a surplus 2.9. During the year, you spent $2.3 million on capital. You had budgeted 12 million, but the things you did do were public work vehicles and equipment, work at the arenas, including a new ice resurfacer, work at the Wingham Well, and some work at Hutton Heights. The things you didn't do that were substantial, where you didn't do the Blythe dechlorination plant. There was some work at the Wingham washrooms you didn't do. You didn't do a lot of the sewer and water work at Hutton Heights. And another one, I think, was $4 million you didn't do was the Wingham Standpipe project. Most of those things will be set aside in 2023. So how the fact you didn't do everything, how it influences your tax, your financial statements is you have more money sitting around because you didn't do it, obviously, and you've transferred money to reserves. So speaking of reserves, you transferred 2.6 million during the year, so your reserves at the end of December are 19.4, almost $19.5 million. Some of those were planned, but a lot, if you had done all your capital projects, you would have actually taken 1.3 out of reserves. So, there's a big, because you didn't do all the capital, your reserves are almost 4 million higher than you would have anticipated at the end of December. Something else at the end of the year, you didn't spend all your federal gas tax money, and so that's sitting as a deferred liability, and that was $630,000. So that money's sitting there, and you'll do that in 2023. But when I do talk about your reserves, 19.4 million, so you're in a good spot there, but 10.2 million of that is for water and sewer projects. So, that money is set aside for water and sewer. So almost a little bit over half your reserves are set aside for water and sewer. A good thing this year, your debt's 315,000, down from 413. There was no new debt taken out. You actually finished paying one loan, so now you only have one loan, which 6-7 years ago you might have 3 or 4 loans, and now you're done to one. As far as the audit, it's a clean, unqualified auditor's report. It just states that, in our opinion, financial statements present fairly in all material respects, financial performance and cash flows for the year ended. So that's good. The report we've kind of provided, it gives a little more detail than the financial statements. The audited financial statements, they don't have a lot of detail. We have to provide them to the province, and they have to be in that manner. They're important because the statements and your FIR, your financial information report, that's kind of what you submit to the ministry, and that's how they see you. So this first page is basically your balance sheet. So the first thing you see is your bank's up from 18 million to 21.7 million. Part of that is the surplus. Part of that is your payables are a lot higher this year. You received a lot of site deposits, et cetera, security deposits, so they're sitting in your bank. And your deferred revenue is higher. I talked about that gas tax. You didn't spend all that, and there's also some development charges have gone up. So your bank's up to 21.7. 12.7 of that is in your general account. Then you have water accounts, 3.9 million, sewer accounts, 5 million. Taxes receivable, you like to collect as much of your taxes as you can. It's up a little bit, 557, but it's still within the range of less than 4%, and 420,000 of it is current. Accounts receivable are lower. Last year, there was some outstanding grants from the county with daycare funding that weren't paid till the end of the years. And your HST is a little lower, so it's down to 1.1 million, which is good because then that money's sitting in your bank. Long-term receivables, that's kind of confusing. Those are tile drain loans that you've sent out to farmers. You don't have very many, and they also sit up in the municipal debt. Then long-term investment, as you can see, every year it's stayed the same. That's the cost of your share of, I think your share is almost 8% of West Ontario Power. So that's at cost, that's not at fair market value, it's when everything was divvied up, that was your original cost in that power utility. So total assets, 25 million, up 3.6 million from last year. Things you owed at the end of the year, accounts payable, a lot of that is site plan deposits, security deposits, et cetera, so that payables are up. Landfill closure, that's something the province makes us do. It's a calculation, how much money you would need today to finance the closure of landfill sites and the monitoring of them for X number of years. So it's not that high because the Wingham site is still open and it won't be closed for a long time. So the money you have now, you don't need as much because you have a long time to accrue the interest, et cetera. And then you have the East Wamanosh, it's closed, and then you responsible for 50% of the Blythe Hullet. So this is just an engineer's estimate of how much money you need today to monitor and close those landfill sites. And it hasn't changed too much. Sometimes it changes on if the period is longer or the interest rates. Deferred revenue, those are security deposits, and I talked about the gas tax you haven't spent yet. That's why it's up quite a bit. The municipal debt, we've talked about that. So 4.2 million is your liabilities. So now we look at your net financial assets, was kind of money you can get your hands on, is 20.7 million. It's up 2.1 million from last year. And if you look from 2018, it's actually up over $8 million. So the last 5 years, financially, you're in a stronger position. Capital assets, we've talked about that. You added 2.3 million. And then we amortize it, so you take something, you depreciate it like a business would over the life of the asset, and that's what showed, on your budget, the 2.3 million would show up, but on ours, we depreciate 2,090,000. And then the difference between your assets, liabilities is your surplus. So your general surplus and capital assets has gone up 327,000. And you can see your reserves have gone from 16.7 to 19.4, and that's 2.6 million higher. The other surplus is just your shares in West Terrio at cost. Are there any questions on the balance sheet as of end of December? If not, the next page is basically your income statement. The taxation, normally your taxation would be bang on, but last year when you did your budget, in that 7.2 was they included a 338,000 tax stabilization increase, and we didn't show that. That's more of a reserve issue. So the 6.9 is the actual taxation, which is up from the previous year. Your various grants, you still get an UMF grant, which is good. There had always been some talk of that going away, but it seems to have stabilized. Modernization was 158,000. You got an infrastructure grant, 580,000. You didn't do that work, so that went straight to reserve. There's a police grant. Other capital grants are just your clean water and watershed fund. You budgeted 2.7. If you had done I assume the Wingham standpipe project, you would have got that funding, so you'll get that when you do it. County fee subsidies, a lot of that's daycare funding. Fire billings, a lot of that is from other municipalities. And shared services, you did receive a little bit more money from neighboring municipalities last year. And other government grants, that's recycling. You got 27,000 for trails for Waterloo Regional Community Fund, and there was community development grant from the county. Your user fees, it's recreation's a lot higher. The 2021, you're kind of hit by COVID. Last year, the arena was closed January 2022, so the income's basically up. Childcare, it was closed less. Other fees and charges, that's permits, etc. It's a little higher. There were some one-time sales of items, so it's higher this year. Big item that helped out was your interest and bank penalty mostly the bank interest, just because you had higher, you received $508,000 of interest last year, almost twice as much as last year, and that's basically just higher interest rates. So total revenue, $16.8 million. It's less than budgeted, but a lot of that is because you didn't do some capital work and didn't get capital grants. Most of the expenses are close to what was budgeted. Not a lot to go through there. And then if you take, on this statement, we're expensing capital and including the reserves. So that shows your total expense is 16.5 million. But then on our statement, we reverse all that and you come back to 13.8, and then you have your surplus of 2.9 million. Any questions on the income statement? If not, the total financial statements, or the full ones, they have our full audit report. They've got all the information. I was there. They do have notes. The notes I would talk about are on page 5 of the notes. It's municipal debt. It shows the 315,000, your payments. It shows the one loan that's come due, so that's your only debt. The province does calculate how much debt you can have. It's generally 25% of your revenue. So you could have $2.7 million in debt, and reality of payments, and your payments next year are $98,000. So you're good standing there. There is a page near the end on reserves, and it just shows how you went from 16.7 to 19.4, and we've kind of talked that you didn't do all the capital projects, so a lot of that money went into reserves. It does show there the environmental services. That's water and sewer, a bit of landfill. Majority of that is water and sewer. That's the 10 million I talked about. Then deferred revenue, I talked about the federal gas tax. Started at 462, you received 156 and didn't spend it, so it's sitting there to be spent in 2023. There are, at the back, there's the trust funds. Your trust funds are your money set aside. It's cemetery. When you sell a plot at the cemetery, a certain amount is set aside for perpetual care. And so that value is 571,000. Then the interest goes towards the operating of the cemetery. So that's the only thing there, and not a lot of change. I did include, we do the audit on the Wingham BIA. Last year in 2021, the BIA bought a new LED sign, so this year they don't have that expense. They had $60,000 in the bank, and accounts payable are lower. Last year they didn't pay for the sign until 2022, so it was payable. So they have a total surplus of 36,000, and they also have 20,000 in reserve. In their statement, the 29,000 is the levy. Membership fees, some businesses are outside the BIA area and they contribute. Sales were basically recoveries on flower baskets and their projects. Promotions are some of the businesses pay towards promotions, so 41,000. And then their advertising, a lot of that is the Christmas promotion, sidewalk sales, etc. Last year they did buy maps, $3,000. And Main Street improvements, that's banners, a lot of that, Christmas lights and planters. And you see the year before they spent 41,000. That includes the LED signs. So they didn't spend all the money they took in. They'll probably do that this year. So that's a surplus of 14,000. Blythe BIA was they ended up with a surplus of $4,700. So their bank went up that amount to $12,600, and they took in $10,200 from businesses, and they spent on their various projects $3,789. The holiday weekend they spent $1,542. So total they took in $10,200. They spent $5.4. So that a small surplus, $4,000. Does anybody? I guess in closing, I would say, part of it is you didn't do all the capital projects, so you're in a stronger financial position. Your reserve of 2.1 million, I've talked about your net financial assets went up 2.1. A lot of that has to do, you had higher reserves, almost 20 million, and very little debt now, 315,000. Are there any questions on the statements?
Any questions from any councillors? My only question was, Mr. Seaback, was the 4%, is that sort of a trend that's going on with taxes not recovered? Is that?
Yeah, it's usually between 3% and 4%, and sometimes it gets distorted, sometimes there's a large one, but in your case, taxes are fairly secure, and sometimes you charge, I think, 1.25%, you know. But that's good, you know, it's a lot of work to collect the taxes, and they do everything they can.
Great. Great, thank you. So, any questions from any of you? I think it's very explanatory there. I really appreciate the work that you did for us, and thank you very much.
Okay, I'm your auditor, and I audit numbers. I don't audit people, but I should say to Chris, Chris came, I don't know when Chris started, October, November? October 31st. And, you know, he was kind of in a spot there, and he was good to work with, like trying to get everything together. Your statements are done on time. You know, a lot of places, you have a deadline with the ministry, and a lot of places don't meet that deadline, and you know, it's good to have your FIR and your financial statements submitted, and then, you know, when you go for grants and everything. So it's good that everything's done. I think this is the second municipality I've been to, so that's a good sign when everything's done on time.
Great. Well, that's good, good words of encouragement there. That's great. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Seaback.
Okay, thank you.
Seven point 1.1 CL 2023-12, termination of Hutton Heights and Wingham Sewage Lagoon land lease agreement. Are there any questions for Clerk Lamb? Okay, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the clerk dated June 19th, 2023 regarding the termination of the land lease agreement between the Township of North Huron and Robert Warwick for the lease of land at Hutton Heights in the Wingham Sewage Lagoon for information purposes. And further, that the council directs the clerk to proceed with providing notice of termination of the lease to the leasee in accordance with Article 3.0 of the land lease agreement adopted by bylaw number 84-2019. Do I have a mover? Councillor Wright, Councillor Whitfield, all in favor? Carried. Finance Department 7.2.1. 2023-17, 2022 audited financial statements that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report from Director of Finance Treasurer dated June 19th, 2023 regarding the 2022 audited financial statements for information purposes. And further, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby adopts the 2022 audited financial statements for the Township of North Huron, Wingham BIA, and Blythe BIA as presented by Mr. Seaback and Company at the June 19th, 2023 regular meeting. Are there any questions for Director Towns here? I think we didn't have any a few minutes ago. We're all set. May I have a mover and Deputy Reeve and Councillor Palmer. All in favor? Carried. Finance 2023-18 Reserve and Reserve Fund bylaws. Are there any questions for Director Towns? Go ahead, Councillor Van Hitterson.
Yeah, just a minute. There we go. In the report, it says, in addition to creating the above noted reserve, it is recommended council consolidate the water and sanitary, all that. Whoops. And to address the township infrastructure, that all the, what does it say? Any possible year-end surplus be allocated toward the asset management reserve fund. Can you give a little bit of an explanation what that is? Is it like we have $1 million left over everywhere and it goes to one asset reserve fund? Or how do I have to look at that?
Press the button on the top there.
Through you, Reeve, to answer Councillor Van Hittersum's questions. I'll start with the first one. You asked about the water and the sewer consolidations. We have two separate general ledger accounts for the same purpose, for the intended use of the same purpose for those funds, and they're in the same bank account. So instead of reconciling two GL accounts to one bank account, just for administration purposes, we figured would consolidate them into one reserve with the intended use of the funds to be the same. The second question was the surplus, am I correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, so that would be an actual cash surplus. So what you were presented tonight was a $2.9 million surplus. That's an overall surplus, that's not cash. I will be working with the auditors over the next couple of weeks to get that determination on what the physical cash surplus is, but it would not be $1 million, or should not be $1 million.
Is that,
And that will be, where will it be put if there is anything?
If there is a surplus, the recommendation on the table right now is that it would go into the asset management reserve.
And that can be used throughout the community?
Yes,
Necessary.
in the definition or the description as proposed for your review and consideration, let me just find it here, there's 52 of them. I can't remember them all off the top of my head. Yeah. Do you know what number it is of? Oh, it's number 7. So this is, as recommended for your consideration and approval, is the discretionary reserve has been established to fund planned expenditures related to asset management, rehabilitation, and/or repair for equipment, vehicles, facilities, and land improvements under the control of the town of North Huron. So annually, a senior management team will evaluate the requirements of this said reserve and request to contribute or withdraw through the operating budget if deemed appropriate.
Okay, thank you. May I do a follow-up? That's for the draft bylaw number 19, Westerro Shareholder Reserve Fund. It is a discretionary reserve, and it is noted that it is Wingham specific. I would like to see the wording changed in at least part of it to North Huron, because the electricity used for the arenas, the town hall, the libraries, the childcare is something that all taxpayers contribute to. So I would like a wording change in that it's not for Wingham specific, or at least not all of it Wingham specific.
Through you, Reeve, to answer or to comment to Councillor Van Hittersum. These are simply staff recommendations for your review and consideration. So if amongst your, as councillors yourselves, if you would like to have a discussion on how you would rather see that worded, please feel free.
Thank you. Do we have to make a notice of motion, or
No, you,
just have a discussion?
yeah, through your worship, to answer Councillor Van Hittersum's question, you wouldn't need a notice of motion, but you can, so there's a staff recommended motion there, and you have the ability to amend that motion, put forward a different motion, so you could, if the rest is looks sufficient to council, you could amend that motion that the clerk bring back a bylaw subject to an amendment to the Westerro Reserve. I'm just going to pull the exact Westerro Shareholder Reserve Fund to reflect that the funds could be used for all North Huron,
Okay.
if that's what you're looking for. So if Councillor Van Hittersum wants to.
I would like that.
do you have a seconder? Councillor Palmer?
Get it on the table.
Yeah, okay, now discussion, please. Councillor Wright?
Yeah, through you, Reeve. So we've had some informal discussions previously on this. I mean, as one of the councillors representing Wingham, I actually do want to foster, kind of a great, a united front that we're one municipality and things should be shared equally. But on the other hand, from a taxation perspective, we still have some separations, right? Like street lighting, for example, is Wingham and Wyeth specific and stuff like that. So I would, now I know we've already done the 2023 budget, we can't change it, but I mean, that's just my thought or my proposal, right? If we're gonna share the revenue stream equally, we should be sharing the expenses evenly as well, and just kind of amalgamate as one true municipality. So I know I don't think we can do a conditional thing on the 2024 budget yet, but, hopefully that would be remembered and supported if we did agree with the amendment change.
Any other report? Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, I was a supporter of it staying within Wingham, but what you brought up, Councillor Van Henderson, that is a point, because everybody's been paying the hydro for all of our buildings, all of our services here, and I wouldn't ask staff to add all that up to see what kind of ratio we've got, but I guess one way around that would be that every dollar of that dividend gets spent. It doesn't matter where it gets spent. Like if it gets spent in Wingham, within Wingham, something, it's something that the taxpayer doesn't have to pay for.
No.
So as long as every dollar that's given every year is spent, we found a spot for it and use it. And I think that would satisfy the taxpayers, all of them. Because if it's not being used and just keeps adding up, and then some magic project comes along and uses it, but if it's used every year, then it's less that everybody else has to pay.
Okay. Any other comments?
Do you want me to read the motion?
Yeah, please.
So the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the Director of Finance Treasurer dated June 19th, 2023 regarding reserve and reserve fund bylaws for information purposes, and further that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby directs the clerk to prepare a bylaw to establish and maintain reserve and reserve funds for the July 4th, 2023 regular meeting of Council, subject to an amendment to the Westerio Shareholder Reserve Fund to state that the funds are able to be used for all of North Huron.
Okay, and we got a seconder, yes? All in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
7.3.1, West Cass Community Complex flooring request for quotation results. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report from Director of Public Works and Facilities dated June 19th, 2023 regarding the request for quotation results for rubberized flooring for the West Cass Community Complex for information purposes, and further that the council approves the purchase and installation of new rubberized flooring at West Cass Community Complex in the amount of $26,486 plus applicable taxes from Stapleton Interiors, Wingham. And further that council directs the Director of Finance Treasurer to transfer funds from the Wingham Recreation Reserve Fund to fund the additional $1,486 to complete this project. Do you have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Falk, Deputy Faulkner, Councillor Wright. Are there any questions for Director Fortney? All in favor? Carried. 7.3.2, Library Air Conditioner Unit Replacement. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report from the Director of Public Works and Facilities dated June 19th, 2023 regarding the replacement of the Wingham Library Air Conditioner Unit for information purposes, and further that the Council approves the purchase of the new air conditioner unit for $4,920 applicable taxes from Gamble Electric Plumbing HVAC Limited. And further, that the council directs the Director of Finance Treasurer to use money from the Library Reserve Fund to fund the purchase of the new air conditioners. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Wright, Councillor Van Hitterson. Are there any questions for Director Fortney? All in favor? Carried. 7.6.1, CL 2023-13 Legislative Services / Clerks Department restructuring. I'm going to turn it over at this time to our CAO.
Thanks, Reeve. So at the present time, the Clerks Department consists of 2 full-time staff and 2 contract staff. Our full-time staff include a clerk planning coordinator and a clerk administrative assistant, as well as we have contract records management assistants. The clerk administrative assistant that position has become vacant, and when a position becomes vacant, it's a common practice for us as staff to review the position as well as the role within the organization. The role of a clerk administrative assistant was reviewed, and staff have identified an opportunity to improve the organization, as well as address some recruitment and retention challenges that are currently being faced by municipalities, including ourselves. Staff, through a series of documents, noted a lack of career advancement opportunities within that particular department, increased workload and stress on staff, as well as lack of alignment between the compensation salary for the work and the responsibilities and the expectations of the position. In addition, the review identified the need for ongoing records management. Records management is a key function within the Clerks Department and greatly assists with conducting research, developing policies, and assisting as we receive Municipal Information Protection and Privacy Act requests. The value of this service has proven to be valuable, and staff feel that there's a need to recognize the importance of this function. If approved, the records management position would be viewed as a stepping stone or part of our succession planning towards a deputy clerk planning coordinating position. Finally, the clerk planning coordinator is part of the senior management team and plays a key role in advancing the business of the municipality. And under Section 2392B of the Municipal Act regarding identifiable individual, council will be asked to consider a director of legislative clerk position to replace the clerk planning coordinator position. Subject to council's approval, the deputy clerk planning coordinator position would be effective immediately. The records management position would be effective January 1st of 2024, and the director role would be effective January 1st of 2024. With respect to the reasons for the proposed restructuring, those are outlined in the reports, but at a high level, one of the first reasons is improved employee retention. The second is implementation of professional development and our succession planning. And third are our added efficiencies, improved customer service, and our program delivery. If the restructuring proposal was approved as presented, there is a net savings to the township in the range of $17,000 to $42,000 range. And it's important to remember that this does not include the costs associated with employee turnover associated with advertising, interviewing, screening, and onboarding new staff. So proposal is presented for council's consideration.
Okay, thank you very much, CAO, and I just ask that you bring any questions to CAO Evans, or if there are department-specific questions, you can ask questions for Clerk Lamb. Okay, I'd like to have a mover and a seconder, then we'll go to discussion. Deputy Reeve, Councillor Van Hitterson. Okay, questions now, please direct them, and remember, we don't want names mentioned, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, so under the financial impact, it kind of portrayed this as a net savings, but the 2 temporary contract workers, they're supposed to be just that, temporary, and those positions were supposed to end at some point, right? So I don't think this should be portrayed as a net savings. This is, adding a full-time head to the organization, and it's going to be a long-term cost. That's not something I'm in favor of. I understand the need to reorganize. I just think maybe the department is so small, in order to do a reorg, it needs to take a bigger view in order to combine more roles or share the responsibilities out. So that's my view. I don't think, we just came through budget. For a while there, we were in dire straits with regards to how much we have to raise taxes. And, I just don't think the community would welcome adding additional full-time staff at this point.
Thank you. Any other comments? Deputy Reeve, please.
Thank you, through you, Reeve. Just a comment. Excuse me. Overall, I'm satisfied and quite happy actually to see some of the processes in place for the ability for advancement within the organization. I find that, or I've found over the years that I've been on council, that seemed to be a dead end for problem that we had with quite a few of our employees throughout the organization as to how quickly one can move up through, or whether there was even possibilities. And then you get picked off by another municipality that's going to entice you to move over and provide that kind of an incentive. So I'm happy to see that the incentive portion is built into this, and the restructuring of some of the positions and their duties. I'm in favor of the improvements that they're mentioning here. I don't see too much of a downfall in any of it. I think we'll benefit from this kind of an approach. Thank you.
Councillor Palmer, please.
I'm always cautious about whether we need a new employee or not, a new staff person or not. Replacing people is one thing, but adding a whole new category. And I was concerned that this was a contract for the data management, and I expected the job to be done at the end of the contract. I had some words with the clerk, and he explained it, and I think it might be helpful if he explained it further, at least openly here, because it's going to take it's just so easy to say we need another person here, another person there. I know everyone's working hard. We understand that. But there has to be a point. We have 5,000 people, and we have a lot of staff. I know we have a lot of services and buildings and what have you, but there has to be a point where, I'm feeling that we're at that breaking point for staff. So if we add to that number, you really have to have a good sales pitch, to do that, to help us along. We need to feel we're going to be hearing it from the ratepayers. You're hiring another person. Okay, we need to be able to explain why and why the need was there. I'm just concerned about other contracts we have, and we just cannot keep rolling contracts into full time unless there's an absolute, good reason for it.
Okay, I just wondered if Clerk Lamb, would you like to respond? I think Councillor Palmer had a question for you.
Sure, Your Worship. Yeah. So, to answer Councillor Palmer's question about kind of the records management project, and we were certainly under the impression too when we started this project, this would be a short 1 year, potentially less contract. The person comes in, scans all the documents, and they leave the organization. But we quickly realized that it was a much bigger project than we ever could have imagined. So when you look at the records of the municipality, the surface, like what you see on the surface, is just a starting point. There's so many records that we possess as a municipality, and the records we've inherited from 3 combined municipalities at amalgamation. But the other piece that we discovered too is this is more than just a records management project. I guess what I refer to it as, it's more of a modernization project as a whole for the organization, which is something that I guess I'm a big believer in. I think we should always be modernizing as an organization, and we found that with Laserfiche, basically the capabilities of this records management software are endless. So, for example, where we hope to move next is the implementation of an accounts payable module that would streamline that process. So instead of someone coming into my office and dropping an invoice on my desk and I sign it by hand and then I pass it back to accounts payable and they give it to the next person, basically through the use of workflows, it pushes it continually down the line until it gets to the point where the bill can be paid, and that way we're nowhere close to the deadlines for paying our bills. And another example would be onboarding of new employees. So when an employee starts with the organization, instead of myself or whoever, Alyssa or our CAO, having to remember, oh, we got to do this and then we got to do this. Basically, it will set up a workflow that the employee enters into the database, and it pushes a workflow to myself to set up their IT needs. It pushes a workflow to our accounts receivable payroll clerk to get them set up for direct deposit, all those kind of things. And so the capabilities of this system are endless, and basically once we continue to push this forward, we're going to look at all the departments to see how they want to use this to streamline their operations. And it's something that I would hate to see, I guess, get to a certain point and then we never capitalize on its potential. But and then in regard to the records management function in particular, when you look at many municipalities now, and they have whole records management divisions, reflecting the nature of the importance of records of a municipality in order to bring their councils the most complete and accurate history and information on a topic, as well as the increase of freedom of information requests that municipalities receive. So, as members of the public, and rightfully so, have the right to access information, which we have a duty to them to make sure that we can provide them that information, and as accurately as we possibly can. So I don't know if, hopefully that answers your question, Councilor Palmer, and kind of gives a sense of the records management function.
Are you happy with what you got from our clerk there?
Well, I was curious, I wanted the rest of council to hear what I heard. Like, it helped me along the way. It's just, now, can we afford it?
Okay. Right here, Deputy Reeve, please.
Through you, Reeve, just an assumption from staff. I would thinking if we did not go ahead with the restructuring, that it would be most likely that the two contract positions would come back to council for further extension for the workload you're talking about. So we're not adding a new person. We're taking a staff of 4 down to 2 or 3, basically, and having one permanent full-time on Leckerfish. So I'm just assuming that if it wasn't full-time, and the contract would come back with it, am I?
So I guess through your worship, to answer Deputy Falconer's question, so the original proposal that I presented to the CAO and our HR coordinator basically was, to me, we'd be shifting some resources away, but we'd be building in a structure where we can continue to advance our records management and modernization forever. So yes, we would be reducing our staff complement, but we'd be putting more resources towards the area that we continue to see the turnover, which is, I guess, the rest of the function of the clerk's department, which to me is the lesser of the two evils. So I would rather see us continue to advance the records management function, even if it's a little slower, but put more resources towards the legislative services piece, which is kind of your council piece, as well as the licensing piece, just to keep good employees within this organization. So.
Thank you.
Were there any other comments at all? Go ahead, Councillor Wright.
Yeah, I guess I'll just kind of echo my previous point one more time and then be done with it. Most organizations don't have the luxury to say, you know, we want to grow our headcount and give us more money to do the management, right? Most, even some government-funded organizations, what they have for management is it, right? And so when they have to do a reorg, when they want to make improvements, they have to find savings elsewhere in the organization in order to support those changes, right? That's the reality for most people. So, you know, when we say we want to put in workflows because it's going to save time, okay, but if it saves time, then what are the other people in the organization doing with that time? If we put in a new system and it's going to have a net benefit to the organization, then it should have, the net benefit should mean you don't have to add people in order to do it, right? So I'm not against what staff was trying to achieve here. I guess what I'm trying to say is, you know, necessity is the mother of invention. And if council says, no, we're not going to add more full-time staff, then that creates the goalpost, right? And then staff knows, okay, if we're going to try to do a reorg, we know what the expectation from council is, right? So anyways, that's my thoughts, that we shouldn't be constantly raising the bar. I don't know how many staff we hired in the last 2 or 3 years, but I know it wasn't 0. And I think we just have to kind of say, no, we should stop at this point and do the best with what we have.
Councillor Van Hitterson?
Thank you, Reeve. I'm in support of this because our staff is really busy. They sometimes have to have their lunch taken at the table. Customers, hopefully this will increase customer service, more staff available for questions, and hopefully the historical part of the record management is done by the end of the year or pretty close to be done, so that the person who is going to do this will have more time for other administrative requirements. And also the overall administrative requirements in business are so much more than in a few years ago. It's just ridiculous. I noticed that at the farm, and I noticed that in all the committees that I'm in, is that there's so much more administrative demand on personnel that it is not just like, well, then you don't do it and it's not going to be done. And it might cost the taxpayers a little bit more, but it will cost taxpayers way more if staff isn't available for services, for questions, to look after grants, for everything. So I would support this.
Yeah, Councillor Palmer, please.
Thank you, Reeve. I'm wondering, are you at liberty to comment on, are there any other savings within the organization? Like, I mean, of staff that will not be, staff positions that will not be filled? Because they're not required. Do we have any options, and can you talk about that?
Sorry, maybe defer to the CA one.
Yeah, so just in terms of, we look at each, like when a vacancy becomes available, that's when we look at it. So certainly, if other positions become vacant, we'll certainly look at those, and then bring back a recommendation to council. So, sorry?
Anything current? Any positions that are current that maybe we don't need?
None that I can think of off the top. We'd have to dig into and look at things in more depth, but
Because that's a way of, if we can survive without a position being filled and still be efficient, like that is part of what, Councillor Wright's talking about, and it does increase our efficiency. And maybe, okay, your department has this need. Maybe that's a way of, okay, we can fill that need and we can save elsewhere in the total scheme of things. And then it's easier for us to, well, for some of us anyways, to handle.
Go ahead, Councillor Wright.
Yeah, and to echo Councillor Palmer's point, that's my thoughts. Is this a bad idea? No, right? But do we have to act on it right now? It doesn't seem like we do, right? So can we shelve it until an opportunity comes up up to where staff says, aha, okay, now there's another vacancy, now we can maybe reorg another department a bit, and that'll offset these costs, right? That's my thoughts.
Go ahead, Councillor Van Hitterson.
Well, we have just, our clerk's assistant just left. I don't think that is a position that we can leave open for a long time. I don't know about that, but
I would,
I
I would
wouldn't
certainly
think-
like to fill that position one way or the other.
No, but you can do a reorg with people in positions, right? They don't necessarily have to be vacant.
Councillor, Deputy Reeve, please.
Thank you. Through you, Reeve. I'd like to make a motion to accept the recommendations on the clerk, legislative and clerk services department restructuring.
Yeah, so you have already, Deputy Falconer was the mover and Councillor Van Hitterson was the seconder.
So if there's no more discussion, I'll read that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the joint report of the CAO, the Human Resources, Health, and Safety Coordinator dated June 19th, 2023 regarding the Legislative Services Clerks Department restructuring for information purposes. And further, that the effective June 19th, 2023, Council eliminates the Clerk Administrative Assistant position in favor of a Deputy Clerk Planning Coordinator position and approves the attached Deputy Clerk Planning Coordinator job description. And further, that the Council authorize staff to proceed with the recruitment process for the Deputy Clerk Planning Coordinator position. And further, that effective December 31st, 2023, Council creates a Records Management / Legislative Services Assistant position and approves the attached Records Management Legislative Services Assistant job description. And further, that the Council directs the Human Resources, Health, and Safety Coordinator to make the necessary changes to the Township's salary grid to reflect these changes. And further, that the Council agrees to a closed session under Section 239 2B, identifiable individual of the Municipal Act to discuss the Clerk Planning Coordinator position as part of the proposed restructuring. I have a mover and seconder.
Could I ask for a recorded vote, Reeve?
So Councillor Wright has requested a recorded vote. So if there's nothing further, I will now call the recorded vote. So Deputy Falconer,
Yes.
Councillor Palmer,
No.
Councillor Van Hitterson,
yes.
Councillor Whitfield,
No.
Councillor Wright,
No.
and Reeve Heffer.
No.
So that motion is defeated 4-2, with the yeses being Deputy Falconer and Councillor Van Hitterson.
Reeve?
Yes, go ahead.
This is a question. As far as the next step, and it's related to, could we make a motion that, I just need help here.
So I guess through your worship, I do need direction on whether there was any part of this you wanted to proceed with, because I do have to fill the clerk's administrative assistant position. So whether that piece is something you were still looking for, or whether you would like me to recruit for another clerk's administrative assistant, I guess I do need direction on that for sure, because that is a vacant position right now.
Okay, so may I carry on? So my point would be, I'd be happy, I understand exactly, Clerk Lamb, what you're saying. And, but I want to see efficiencies. I want to see if there are efficiencies to be made within the organization. Because we're at a point where, if we add, not that we need to subtract, but do we need to fill? We need this little balance going on, and if that's possible. So like that would be a motion that I would put forward, that we would look for efficiencies, staff efficiencies within our organization to be able to justify needed filling, which would be the clerk's department. Is that making sense?
Just give him a moment and he'll read it back.
So if this isn't what you're looking for, Councilor Palmer, let me know, but something along the lines of that the council of the township of North Huron hereby directs staff to investigate potential efficiencies or to investigate efficiencies to offset a potential restructuring of the clerk's department? Is that?
Generally, that's what I was after. Yes.
We have a mover. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that, Reeve.
Councilor Wright?
And I guess just if I may, so that I understand where I'm at, is council wanting me to recruit for a clerk's administrative assistant then?
Well, with my intent, it would be an absolute yes if we can find, but I'm putting a maybe in there. If we can find an efficiency, then I would have absolutely no trouble saying, go ahead. All right, so that's where I'm feeling, how I'm feeling about it. Now, if you can't find efficiencies, and I'm sure there's got to be something in there, and I don't mean a contract position that's finishing at the end of the year. That one doesn't count for me anyways. But if there's a spot that you got open and we don't really need to fill it because everybody's working hard and it's going fine, I'm sure there's one in there in our system. So, anyways, that's how I feel. We can all take it as we wish, but.
I'll read it once more, if you don't mind, please.
Yep, so the motion on the floor is that the council of the township of North Huron hereby directs staff to investigate efficiencies to offset a potential restructuring of the clerk's department.
Deputy Reeve,
I
please.
request a recorded vote, so the Reeve has to vote.
So you have a mover right now, I guess, for that motion. Are you looking? You have to look for a second here.
I'll second that motion.
Councilor Wright?
Okay, and then Deputy Reeve Falconer's requested a recorded vote.
Just wait, could you read that once more time, please?
Yep. So again, the motion on the floor would be that the council of the township of North Huron hereby directs staff to investigate efficiencies to offset a potential restructuring of the clerk's department. There's been no direction provided for that. No. So that's the piece. That's the piece that I need some clarity on, because I do have to post this vacancy. So as of right now, I will be posting for a clerk's administrative assistant, not a deputy clerk, unless council tells me otherwise. Because you would have to eliminate the clerk's administrative assistant position and approve a job description for a deputy clerk one, which council hasn't done.
But you're refilling a position, so, no one would stop that.
We would refill the position the exact same way we have
Yeah.
in the past.
Yeah. Names can be changed, sort of the position, title can be changed down the road if everything worked out, but.
Reeve?
Go ahead.
I think the function of a deputy reeve planning coordinator and a administrative assistant is requires a different education and different entry level. So I'm not sure if that is like, oh, we hire you for this, but maybe you can be that too if we think there's no efficiencies or there are efficiencies. I think it's a little bit hard to hire for that. And if the clerk's department is finding if they are already understaffed and now they have to find efficiency, so that's very hard to do, I think. If you are already stretched to the limit because you are working without one person and now you have to do an extra job without anybody else.
I think if we, yes, I see all that. I'm more out, this is more for the third position, the new position that we were considering. That's the intent of what I'm moving forward. But as far as you need a deputy, we should just do that one. And have changed the name of the title like you wish, and, we can vote on that one. That would be easy.
Okay, so that is not captured right now. If that is your intent,
Needs to be captured.
then okay.
Yeah.
Is that okay, Mitch? As far as the intent?
Yeah, if it's, I don't necessarily have an issue with that, because that's just a one-step pay band
Yeah.
change, which is a big difference in a permanent full-time employee.
Bear with me here.
Reeve? But you're not considering that as a second whereas, though? It'd be a separate, would it not?
Oh, it's up to council of how you want to proceed. You can deal with this first motion on the floor and put another motion forward,
Yeah.
or you can deal with it all as one. It's entirely up to yourself as the mover and
Well, it's
Councilor Wright
dangerous
as the
as all
seconder.
as one, so I would do it as two.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so then, if that's what council would like to see, then we'll deal with the motion on the floor first, which again is that the council of the Township of North Huron hereby directs staff to investigate efficiencies to offset a potential restructuring of the clerk's department. So your mover is Councilor Palmer, your seconder is Councilor Wright, and Deputy Falconer has requested a recorded vote.
Would that, restructuring that statement of the clerk's department, all that should really mean as that data management,
So, and I can
Position.
add that if that's.
yeah, just to keep everything clear.
Go ahead, Councillor Falk.
Wouldn't that mean that for that to go forward, this motion would have to fail? If he's putting in two motions.
Nope, you could do both. The direction can be provided exclusive. Basically, this one would mean that we would look for efficiencies and look at if efficiencies are identified within the organization, we would bring something back for the records management legislative services assistant position. And then the other one, so the direction on that we would be seeking would be in regard to eliminating the clerk's administrative assistant in favor of a deputy clerk position. So with the amendment requested by Councilor Palmer, the new motion on the floor would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby directs staff to investigate efficiencies to offset a potential restructuring of the clerk's department to create a records management legislative services assistant position. So Councilor Palmer, I'm seeing you nod your head. Councilor Wright, you're okay. So then Deputy Falconer has requested a recorded vote. So I will call that now. So Councilor Palmer?
Yes.
Councilor Van Hitterson,
No.
Councilor Whitfield,
Yes.
Councilor Wright,
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Falconer,
No?
and Reeve Heffer.
Yes.
So that motion carries 4-2, with the noes being Deputy Reeve Falconer and Councilor Van Hitterson. Yep. So then the next motion to deal with the deputy clerk in particular, so we'll just pull from the previous. So the new motion on the floor would be that that effective June 19th, 2023, council eliminates the clerk's administrative assistant position in favor of a deputy clerk planning coordinator position and approves the attached deputy clerk planning coordinator job description. And further, that council authorizes staff to proceed with the recruitment process for the deputy clerk planning coordinator position. So your mover is Councilor Palmer, and you're looking for a seconder.
Do you have a seconder?
I'll second that, Reeve.
Councillor Wright?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Reeve Heffer. What does this do to our to the salary grid and band movements and that?
So, through your worship, so based on the numbers that the CAO presented, this year there would be no financial impact because you have had a number of vacancies within your administration department. So even if that was to advance a band, you could still absorb it within your current, you could still absorb it within your current budgeted amounts for wages this year. As for future years, just looking back to the CAO and the HR coordinator's report here,
7,800.
7,200?
8.
It would be $7,800 of maximum earning potential. So I guess that's not to say that you would experience a $7,800 change from this year to next year. That would be when the position reaches job rate, so step 5 of the new band, that would be a difference of $7,800 from when they had the potential to reach job rate in their current band.
Okay. Mover and seconder?
Yep, so you have a mover and a
Did
seconder.
anybody recast the recorded vote?
Not on this one.
Okay. All in favor? Carried.
You're good.
Okay.
Nope. You're good to move to 9.1.
9.1, activity report. Just the last Saturday, the musical, sorry.
Counselor Palmer's just.
Sorry to interrupt. Question, Reeve? So really, that still leaves the clerk title change? Do we deal with that? Should we deal with that now or later?
I defer to the CAO, but
CAO.
you have a closed session scheduled on this agenda.
So we'll have the conversation enclosed, and council can give direction.
I say that because we would have dealt with it previously, more or less. In this one here, 761, originally it would have been dealt with, so that's why I'm asking. If you want to wait, that's fine.
Thank you. The musical Muskrat Festival was a huge success. Just want to tip hats off to Melinda Wheeler and her team. It's just great to see all the kids lining up for the bouncy tents and whatnot. It was just, and a lot of local entertainment in the tent. And something that was new in the town this Saturday was a cricket match. It was put on by the Wingham Connectors. The sad part about it, we're sorry we're losing our chair, Christine Marshall, that got the community connectors going from Blythe to Fort Beach to Teeswater to Lucknow. She was instrumental in getting it going. But she's got people lined up to keep carrying it on. So she's going down to her family, but we just appreciate the work that Christine did over the last few years. And then just want to put a shout out to thank you for the volunteers that are painting the cemetery fence there. And again, a thank you to Mr. Staton for providing the paint to them to be able to do that. And just one last little thing, this weekend there is a breakfast going on at 2 different municipalities here, one out at Huron East at Mr. Pryor's farm, and then just in our own area here at down Westfield at Mr. Steve Hallahan's, and a couple of the councillors I know at least were there, and they all have, I'm sure, something to do with it. But Ms. Thompson brought a message to it that they're giving $1.7 million to just the agricultural groups that are in the area, like with the fairs and whatnot, that they're doing it over a 3-year span. So it was really good, and they're going to try and encourage it to the younger folks in schools and whatnot. So that was just a positive boost to everybody there. Say thank you. Okay, go ahead. Anybody else have anything to say
You're a council member.
from Councillor? Go ahead.
Yes, thanks. Thank you, Reeve. So I'm just going to bring a brief report from the Wingham BIA. Their major project, as they presented earlier this year, was to purchase and install new park benches on Main Street. They have made the selection, and so they've issued the purchase order for that. and it's a 8-week delivery time, so we should see them delivered before end of summer, and from the photos, they look pretty sharp, so I think it'll have a noticeable effect on our main street.
Thank you. Okay, comments by members. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Councillor Faulkner, Deputy Reeve.
Actually, there's two hands over there before mine.
Two over here. Okay, we'll go over you with Mr. Whitfield, followed by Councillor Van Hitterson.
Okay, on Friday, the 16th, Paul and I attended a Sustainable Huron meeting again. They were very good. They talked about the population, Sustainable Huron. We got increased population. They said we do have some immigrants coming in, but after 3 to 4 years, they seem to be leaving. About 40% of them leave. They said racial slurs and different things were part of it. I have heard before, though, that it's mostly the cost of living in Ontario and Canada, that these people are leaving. We talked about that. We talked about the income for these people. We looked at that. The income below 50,000 is quite a large percentage of the population of the immigrants that come in, like anywhere between 10 and 30 up to possibly 50,000, depending on what they're doing, which would make it very tough for these immigrants to live. So they're looking for subsidized housing and everything for these people. And there's quite a gang working on that, working on their living wage, which is now up to $20.70. And their biggest worries that they had, 63% of them was food shortage. By the time they pay their bills, they didn't have any money for food. And that was quite a thing for that. And when by the time they pay the rent or their mortgage, transportation, utilities, like a lot of the extras weren't even calculated into this, and they had no money left by the end of the month. Then we had the cost of homes has gone up 67%, and the income has gone up 9.1%. We've heard on that too, which makes it awful tough to compete again. So like, these immigrants are leaving the area. We found out that there is St. Mary's has a Lions Club with a fund down there with a kind of a traveling vegetable and fruit garden they're bringing around to a few different areas too. They're buying from local farmers and they're selling it at their cost. Lots of volunteers. The cost in the store, they were telling us, was pretty much double. And they go around and they have these people that need subsidized slightly to, they can buy the food off these food trucks a little bit cheaper. They truck it around the countryside. There's a free little pantry up there in Goderich. There's 3 little pantries that they have for homeless people and people that need some help too, up in Goderich. And which one? Yeah, there's a traveling one, the free little, Soups and More out of Goderich also. Once a day or twice a day they were having the meals with soups and sandwiches and everything, which was a pretty good thing too. And there was Brussels. I'm trying to remember. The church was doing meals on Friday at noon, and they were thinking about expanding that into a Friday night to maybe attract a few more people that are working and not being able to make ends meet too. They had donations they wanted anybody and everybody to come that possibly could, and maybe if you can make a donation, and if you can't, the food's still there. And as Paul was saying also, the Muskrat Festival seemed like a pretty good go there, and there seemed like a lot in attendance. It was a pretty good do. I was down there for a couple hours and enjoyed myself watching the kids doing their bottle toss and everything, and the little kids, $5 a head to go on all the toys they had down there. I don't believe that would cover their costs of what was there. The local entertainment was very good. We were quite impressed. And that's about it.
Anita, do you have something?
Yeah, thank you very
Go
much. Yeah, physicians recruitment had their committee meeting again. The priority for the physicians recruitment for the Wingham site is the replacement of one retiring doctor that is currently has 1,200 patients. Wingham has 12,648 patients in total, with 9 physicians in 3 clinics, providing care to people from 5 municipalities in 2 counties and numerous unrostered patients. The coming summer months will be challenging for scheduling because of everybody needing vacation and that, and not enough physicians coming to the community. The hospital hired 48 new people. It is a challenge they have right now is that it is a very young demographic, and maternity leave is very high. It's 61%, so it's hard to. It's very nice that it is a young demographic, but it's the hard side is that they have to leave maternity leaves. What they're looking for in the communities is what Councillor Whitfield said as well. For new doctors who are looking for welcoming communities that have employment for their partners, leisure activities, decent housing, cultural diversity, childcare and inclusion. And as a council, I think we have to be aware of the effect that our decisions will have, not only for the current residents, but also for the livability of the community. Another thing is the breakfast on the farm that Reeve Heffer also mentioned. About 1,300 people came to visit both farms. There were 150 volunteers. And I think everybody had a great time. And it was a wonderful opportunity for everybody to educate everybody about the rural and farm lifestyle and all the costs that go into the costs and efforts that go into producing everybody's food. I also want to mention that Blythe and Wingham both have food pantries that are accessible for people to take food, and many churches do food programs. And Wingham has the community garden. It's always looking for volunteers, and they donate to the food bank as well. I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Deputy Reeve?
Thank you, Reeve. Last Saturday, I had the opportunity at 2 different events. First, on behalf of the Reeve, I had the opportunity and the pleasure to give opening remarks and welcoming to the Huron County's first Pride Festival up in Goderich. The square was packed. It was a wonderful event. They had things going on all over town, so it was an amazing event. I was not able to see the whole weekend there because I had other commitments, but from what I've heard, it was a great success. Shortly after that, I had returned back to Blythe and did a welcome on behalf of council and staff and the Reeve for the Blythe members of the Cowbell bike team, the MS bike team. Every year, this is the 4th annual. They have a ride, fundraising ride on the G2G Trail. And this year they had a poker run where they had to stop in at 5 different locations. But at those locations there was information for them. They had at one stop they had Julie Sawchuk showing her hand bike and talking about road safety and handing out share the road stickers, and there was a couple of farms that were involved that they were showing off their operations that they. And we're giving them some kind of trivia questions that they had to answer, and I can say that quite a few of the members were from the city, and they had some pretty off the topic answers to the questions. But it was a fundraiser on behalf of the MS Bike Ride, which is a major fundraiser for the London chapter. Grand Bend to London Ride, which happens a little later on this summer. So all the money goes to a good cause. And, if you don't mind, I'll go on to right after this will be comments of members. If no one else has anything else, on the Sunday, June 25th at 1:30, the Friends of the Village of Blythe welcome you and your families to the Memory Garden down at the end of Drummond Street. Please accept this invitation to the 21st Annual Remembrance and Dedication Service at the Memorial Gardens at the end of Drummond Street East, Blythe, Ontario. Join them for fellowship and refreshments. And please take time to enjoy the new flowers that are in bloom. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments by members? Seeing none. Bylaw number 44, 2023, museum deaccessioning policy. Do I have a mover? Counselor Van Hitterson, Counselor Whitfield, all in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 45, 2023, agreement with Omega Contractors Incorporated for Phase 2 Hutton Heights Servicing Project. Do I have a mover? Deputy Reeve Faulkner, Counselor Palmer, all in favor? Carried. Announcements. The next regular council meeting will be held on Tuesday, July 4th, 2023 at 6 p.m. here in the Town Hall. Next Wingham BIA Board meeting will be held on Thursday, August 17th, 2023 at 6:30 at the Hot Stove Lounge at the West Cass Community Center. And the next Blythe BIA Board meeting will be held on Thursday, June 29th, 2023 at 8 a.m. at the Blythe and District Community Center. Are there any other announcements? Seeing none. Other business, closed session, and reporting out that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby proceeds at
7:26 p.m.
7:26 p.m. to an in-camera session closed to the public under Section 239(2)B of the Municipal Act to discuss the following: personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, identifiable individual related to the clerk's department's restructuring, and further, that CO Evans and HR Health and Safety Coordinator Lido remain in attendance. Do I have a mover? Councillor Van Hitterson, Councillor Wright, all in favor? Carried.